Well, now to a special look at infertility. The World Health Organization says roughly 1 in 5 Americans is unable to conceive after 1 year of trying. Now we're hearing from real couples about their silent struggle, the emotional toll it's taken, and what happens when IVF doesn't work. Rebecca Jarvis has more on this National Infertility Awareness Week.
The biggest heartbreak for me has been the rejection where I feel like my body is failing me.
It's a silent struggle endured by so many. Infertility.
Night 1 injections is in the books.
For Kristen Shields and husband Logan from Utah, it was the shattering of a dream.
It's this reality that everybody's going to grow up and be successful and having kids. And when that doesn't happen, you're left scrambling, trying to put together the pieces.
In 2019, the two began their family planning, going through 4 rounds of IVF, with the couple getting pregnant 2 times, only to experience both ending in miscarriages.
We went in for an ultrasound and they told us there was no longer a heartbeat.
When we lost both of those babies, it almost made that hurt a lot more.
According to the World Health Organization, roughly 1 in 6 women globally experience infertility, with 1 in 5 in the U.S. unable to conceive after 1 year.
Leaving the doctor's office that day, it was super disheartening. I definitely cried, and I didn't stop crying for about a week.
Christelle Joseph Cadley and her husband turning to surrogacy after a diagnosis of stage 4 endometriosis gave her just a 2% chance of conceiving. The financial considerations of that becoming a secondary blow.
Trying to figure out who's going to carry it, how we're going to afford it, because agencies cost, oh my gosh, like an arm and a leg, $25,000 just to even find someone, plus pay the person, plus medical expenses, because again, insurance did not cover it.
It's a series of setbacks that can often leave women feeling lonely and alone.
It's important to have someone to support you. That may be a relative, a friend, or even support groups. When it comes to the treatment, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. In some cases, it may mean considering using donor egg or working with a gestational carrier. And even in some cases, one may consider adoption. There's more than one way to build your family.
Rebecca Jarvis, thank you. And Chief Medical Officer at Verywell Health, board-certified OBGYN Dr. Jessica Shepard is here with more on this. Dr. Shepard, great to see you. Dealing with the news of infertility, just getting that news is tough. And going through the IVF process adds another layer to that. I've been through all of that. But thankfully, I have 2 kids because of it. I can't imagine what it's like for these couples that go through all of that, and then it doesn't work. How often does that happen? And what do you think people need to know from the onset?
I think what we've heard clearly from the stories that were shared before is that really infertility doesn't have kind of a discrimination. It doesn't happen to certain people based on their race, religion, sexuality, or economic status. And also looking at age. Typically, you'll find that women as early as in their 20s or 30s, obviously more likely when women get into their 40s, have these issues, but it comes with the psychological and a physical impact that people may not be ready for.
Now, what are some factors that contribute to infertility? And is there any particular group that's most at risk?
Now, when we think of race and ethnicity, say, we know that there's going to be a higher rate of infertility issues when we think of possibly Hispanic Americans and Black Americans. And when we look at white and Asian Americans, they actually have the lowest rates of infertility when we're looking at just from a race and ethnicity position. But even with that, we know that looking at the reasons why is usually what causes most of the confusion. Because as an infertility specialist, when we're starting with our OBGYN and having issues of not being able to conceive for 12 months and then going to find what the issue may be, this may mean looking at labs, ultrasounds, even having surgeries to really find what the issue is, and also considering a male impact with infertility as well. That needs to be drawn into the conversation. So as you can see already, that this, again, has a long kind of drawn out process, which again can be an emotional impact and distress on couples.
Dr. Shepard, infertility is often thought of as a women's issue, but according to the National Institutes of Health, about 9% of men also experience infertility. That's compared to about 11% of women. How significant is that?
I think that's very significant because if you think of when most people present, it is a women's issue. People usually will come forward and saying, I have the issue from a woman's perspective. But when we actually do the workup, one of the easiest ways to kind of see if there is a male factor in the infertility workup is to do an analysis from the male perspective, because it is less cost and also downtime. And then you can see, is this something that's contributing, rather than going all throughout the factors of going through testing and imaging for a woman only to find out in the end that there is a male factor. So I think we really need to change that dialogue on how we look at infertility specifically and not being just a woman's issue.
Now, there are fewer than 500 IVF clinics nationwide. So what happens if you don't have one in your area, or if you can't afford IVF?
Even with the stories that we heard before, finances are usually a big part of the struggle with infertility. And that's why we need to look at it as an actual disease state rather than just saying, oh, someone's going through infertility, how unfortunate. And now that we know that there's so many other factors from a physical impact, also from an emotional impact, we need to now look at it from a coverage standpoint and making sure that women have the coverage through insurance, and looking at legislation on what would be covered, what companies feel that they would be willing to contribute from a coverage standpoint, so that it doesn't become an additional impact on people who are trying to become pregnant.
All right, Dr. Shepherd, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.